Hello and welcome back to the Jackie and Alam Show. I'm guest speaker today, Miss Baker, and I'm going to be talking just a little bit about the Treaty of Versailles, which is today's topic. So the Treaty of Versailles was basically the official bureaucratic ending to World War I, even though some fighting still did occur after it was signed. Versailles is a palace in France, and it was signed in France, obviously, which is right outside of Paris. It had 15 parts. It was quite a long treaty, which had 15 parts and 440 articles, which basically restricted, limited, and reassigned various boundaries, mostly German boundaries, considering geography. It also outlined many reparations that the Germans had to make in order to pay for the enormous costs of the war. Side note, some people consider this treaty really to be the starting point of World War II, even though it would be nearly 20 some years later before that war would start. But these reparations were so severe to the Germans, and the boundaries were so unpopular, these new redistrict boundaries were so unpopular that it stirred so much anger in people. Especially Germans, a lot of anger. They had a lot of anger, about their economy after the war, and this anger needed to be directed somewhere, and it ended up basically being harnessed by Hitler and the Nazi Party in its various forms until he really came to power in the early 30s. And he really found a way to harness and direct the anger that the Germans had over their rising inflation and how much food costs and how much housing costs and how much unemployment there was. And all of that energy really needed to be directed into something, and it was very useful for, we'll just say, the bad guys to take advantage of that and use it for their causes. So to get more in depth about what those 440 articles in that 15 parts of the treaty itself will be my experts, Jackie and Alam.
Okay, Jackie here. Now we're going to tell you a little bit more about the Treaty of Versailles in specific, some of the key points to it at least. We're going to start with the fact that Germany was going to have to accept the blame for starting World War I. This would cause a lot of resentment later on towards the Treaty of Versailles and the effects that it would have on them, especially because Germany had to accept $31.4 billion in reparations that they had to pay for the liabilities during the war. But don't forget that they had already been at war for at least 4 years. So therefore, these reparations that they would have to give up would cripple Germany as a whole. They also had to give up territorial concessions and make new boundaries for the territory that they used to have. This was also in effects or efforts to try to make Germany not be able to start a war again. Germany also was limited to at least only 100,000 men in their army. And now I'm going to move on to Ahlam talking a little bit more about the army restrictions that they had.
In addition to what Jackie said, Germany was limited to 6 pre-dreadnought battleships, no submarines or air forces. And it also had to demilitarize Rhineland. And this was all to prevent them from starting another war.
Ironic, isn't it?
Yep. Next, the Treaty of Versailles also created the League of Nations in 1920 to provide a forum for international disputes.
But Germany was prohibited from joining that, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Keep in mind that the Treaty of Versailles had 440 articles and 15 parts, but this was only the key parts of the Treaty of Versailles. This is like the main points that Germany had to agree to in order for this treaty to be signed. Even though this treaty was like ended World War I and everything and was aimed at preventing Germany from starting another war, it actually opened the door for Germany to
let in Hitler, at least, because Germany felt like a lot of resentment. Germany felt that everyone else hated them and their country was crippled at that point. It kind of led this desperation to allow Hitler to take power and for Hitler to come in with the Nazis and for World War II to come. So the war to end all wars didn't end the wars.
And then Hitler, knowing that Germany was in resentment, depression, and everything, took advantage of that and persuaded the people to believe that everything was the Jews' fault. The Treaty of Versailles was the Jews' fault. He found somebody to blame. He found the Jews to blame for the loss of World War I.
He used otherness in this case,
The sense of otherness.
the sense of otherness, to
Dehumanize
take power,
the Jews.
to dehumanize the Jews, blame the Jews, and get power, get that respect, get this popularity out of Germany that he would need later on to lead the Nazis into World War II.
He was so eager to create a revolution in Germany so that he can come to power and basically dictate this whole nation and eliminate the Jews.
Basically, if it weren't for World War I and the way that it evidently crippled Germany, if it wasn't for the Treaty of Versailles that was signed June 29, 1919, remember that, when it officially marked the end of the World War I, then maybe we wouldn't have had this World War II, because Germany would have never given Hitler the power that it gave him, and the Nazis. You have to remember that the Nazis were originally already existent pre-Hitler, but they didn't come to power because Germany never listened to them. If it wasn't for Hitler that made them hate the Treaty of Versailles and made them hate the Jews and gave them somebody to blame, perhaps World War II wouldn't have even began.
So this concludes the Treaty of Versailles. Thank you for listening and have a great day.
Bye!